Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Jensen from Dean's Chat. If you're on the fence as to whether you want to join the American Podiatric Medical Association, jump on in. It's a new APMA. Whether it's advocacy concerns, scope of practice, billing and coding, consider membership at the APMA as your professional insurance. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Life is good. No complaints. Getting the new quarter going. We've got a new cohort of students that started their podiatric journey last week. Life is good. How about you?
Oh, it's so fun to have the new students on campus. There's all this excited energy. And then second week will come in and you'll feel it start to get a little more intense.
I know. I told them during orientation, is next week when Monday starts, the party's over. No, I just said, again, like tongue in cheek kind of. I just remember those days like they were yesterday. Joe, we have a phenomenal guest today on the podcast from the Bay Area, Dr. Brian Derner. Welcome to Dean's Chat.
Hey guys, happy to be here. Excited.
Thank you for joining us. And Dr. Derner, we're fairly informal on Dean's Chat. If it's okay with you, let's go first names, Brian, Joe, and Jeff.
Sounds great.
Well, Brian, I'm so excited to have you on Dean's Chat. You and I have actually known each other kind of intermittently. You were a student that rotated through Kaiser San Francisco when I was, I think, an attending, but it's possible I was a chief resident. I don't remember exactly the year. It doesn't really matter. But I wasn't attending because you emailed me. And that's the thing that sticks out in my head. So we'll talk about that story coming up. But I don't want to do a disservice to your career. So we'll start with, you got your undergraduate degree with a Bachelor's of Science and majoring in biology from the George Washington University, and went on to complete your podiatric medical degree with Temple University School of Podiatric Medicine. You completed your 3-year surgical residency program with the Highlands Presby St. Luke program in Colorado. And then you went on to complete your fellowship with the Core Institute here at Phoenix. And now you are a faculty attending at the Kaiser South Bay Consortium. Welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thanks. No, appreciate it. It's exciting. Definitely a very full circle moment, especially when we got to see each other again at the ABFAS case, evaluations and all that. So, no, it's great seeing you guys, and I'm super happy to be on the pod.
I'm familiar with the Core Institute because I had my knee surgery there 3 weeks ago. Ryan Scott gave me a great referral to one of the orthopods, and they took great care of me. So good. I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. It's all the organic part of what happens when we get really excited about talking to a guest. So, Brian, what I would love to kind of start with is some of the conversation that we had over the cocktail hour or whatever at the ABFAS case review. But before we get into that, I have to tell the little story because it's important and it's memorable. And now that you are an attending, I'm curious what your experiences are when you work with students in the operating room. So, Jeff, this was great, right? We hear that we tell students this all the time. I don't even remember what I asked Brian, but I asked him something and he didn't have the answer right off the top of his head. And he said to me, I will look it up and I will get back to you. And I said, great. And most of the time, students don't always do that. And the way it works in some programs, the students go all over the place. So they're not always with one attending the whole time that they're there. And so I actually never saw him again during that month. But he went through the effort of trying to or finding out how to get my email address. And he sent me the follow-up information on my question. And that amount of effort, I remember when we went back through and we were reviewing applications, I said, this student went above and beyond to make sure to follow up with me. That says so much about his work ethic. So anyway, I thought that was awesome, Brian. It stood out in my head. You were a fabulous student anyway, and that stands out for itself. But that extra going that extra distance, I'm curious. You've had several students now rotate with you. What is it like being an attending?
It's definitely a crazy flip, especially after fellowship too, where we were working actually with Midwestern students when you guys were still rotating through core. And so it was nice to teach in that regard. And then once I became an attending, seeing the month-to-month transition, trying to feel like I'm on the other side of the fence now, it was hard. It was really hard to try and say, okay, I'm going to be tough but fair. That's kind of my normal way of teaching, is that I want you guys to learn. I mean, that's the point of all of this is to learn, and being thorough and going through all that is the most important thing that a student can have in their arsenal going into interviews, going into other rotations. I think that I want students to emulate what I was able to do, where you want to be respectful of the attending's time. You want to really understand that they're willing to bring you into the OR, into the clinic, and teach you, and to show them the respect and say, I don't necessarily know this right now, but I will in the future. It's all additive. This is continuing education regardless of what we're doing. And so to continue to implement that through each rotation, through each month, through each part of your career is awesome. And it's a way to pay it back, pay it to people that taught you, your mentors, and all those people.
I love that. Jeff, your thoughts?
I just think it's fascinating because we all go through it, right? You're a student, you're a resident, then all of a sudden you get into an environment where there's a residency program and you dip your toe in the waters of trying to teach a little bit, and then they're rotating with you. I think to be fair and to pull knowledge out of students, sometimes they forget it's even there, but incorporating learning into case studies and the patient as they're there, there's an art to teaching, and people tend to gravitate towards things they like to do. So you got to like it too. So obviously you do, Brian.
Absolutely. And I think for me, when it comes down to it, I want to teach with evidence-based medicine. I want our students to understand that as well, because that's the foundation of our education after all of the all the classes and all the tests that you're taking. It's all the other things that are continuing to add to your practice, changing the way that you do things, both surgically and clinically. Those things all add up.
Ooh, I would love to piggyback on that for just a second, because I 100% agree. And as we are talking to students literally right now, in fact, they'll have a journal club coming up with me for the first time next Monday. And my journal club's a little different than some of the journal clubs they've been to, because we do really try to structure it very similar to what we used to do with residents on residency education.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like for you on kind of a monthly academic schedule or process for your residents? How do you guys incorporate your evidence-based medicine? Is it just journal clubs? Do you do specific grand rounds on topics? What does that look like for your program?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically our academics are Mondays and Thursdays, where we try and do at least some type of lab in addition. Today, actually, we had a journal club during our lunch hour, where we went over about a few articles associated with, I think, diabetic foot care for the majority, and some of the Journal of Foot and Ankle Surgery most recent publications, where we try and be thorough. We have a nice discussion and dialogue about these. We are also trying to work on some of the board's preparation. I think we found that that's been a little bit beneficial, with regards to curtailing a lot of the education and cases to make it board style, to improve results associated with the tests, and also preparation for all of that. We try and present cases. If I have a morning clinic that maybe a patient didn't show, I'd like to bring in the students and the residents to discuss a case or two, saying, hey, this is what I did, or hey, I have a patient that has this pathology, what would you do? And really try and give them a more interactive version of learning. I always like that. For me, I'm a more hands-on person. But that being said, using the evidence-based approaches we have through our board's education, all of those things, and not sending all of these articles to them, but almost showing them in a different way that they understand the core purpose of these articles to expand on their education.
I love that. And Jeff, I'd love to get your take on this, but one of my critiques sometimes with journal clubs is it turns into this, like, let's just tear this article to shreds. It's so poorly done. And while there's value in recognizing good research from bad research, there is often this kind of gray zone where it's like, yes, these are the limitations of the study, but these are valuable points that we can talk about. And this is where the points that they're making, maybe we can't quite say that. And so I appreciate the way that you structure it much around this idea of, like, here's a case. How does the evidence support this case? Jeff, what are your thoughts?
I found over the years that medical writing medical articles are so different than everyday life, right? Scrolling on the internet and things. And for so many of our students, they don't have an experience reading clinical research and trying to dissect with a critical eye an article to find out the pros and cons and the weaknesses or the strengths. So I think we have a tremendous responsibility at the college to help the students understand a foundational base of how you assess an article. And I think that once they understand that, and once their knowledge base, of course, is increased, right? Because they're students right now, they will learn over time to really have a critical eye. And I think that's just a process that we all go through from student to resident to practitioner. But I think that we all have a huge responsibility to help the students because they don't know what they don't know when they first come in.
That's true. I think that just learning how to dissect an article is important. Through residency, we would do journal club every single week. We'd read about 10 articles every week. And I think I did the math. I ended up reading probably over like 1,600 articles through residency, which is crazy. But it creates efficiency. And that's always something that I hone in on with our residents and students is learning, hey, yeah, this article may be quite verbose, but what are the main points? What are the takeaways? And like Joe's saying, you don't have to tear an article to shreds to understand its value.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Brian.
And at the same time, hang on. Because at the same time, and this is the part that I really, you can see I'm already getting all passionate and fired up about it. There are so many people that are trying, and maybe that's not fair. I don't want to over exaggerate. There are some claims in these articles that just because it's published, now it means it's fact. And that's not accurate either. And so to your point, Brian, of being able to dissect out what is important, and hopefully this is what happens through the peer-reviewed process, but it sometimes doesn't, right? And so being able to read through an article with a critical eye and say, look, they're trying to make this claim, but if we actually start looking at their confidence intervals, if we start looking at some of these parameters, maybe they'd even run a power analysis, maybe they didn't need to, but these are the important things. If you don't understand how to look at some of these variables, then it's easy just to believe whatever the conclusion statement is off of the abstract. And so this is how you're going to learn when you leave school. The literature is going to be your teacher. These conferences are based off of the literature. So how can we understand the facts that are being presented versus the rhetoric that's being kind of thrown around? So sorry, Jeff, I don't know why I got all soapboxy there. Maybe it's because I'm prepping for this coming up with our students, and we have some great articles of demonstrating these key points to look at. So
that's all right. Brian, I was going to give a shout out to Dr. Paul Stone at PSL.
Oh yeah.
He's the journal club guru, and he's one of the brightest docs I've ever had an opportunity to work with.
I mean, he could spout out any year, any article. It was amazing. And to be able to have that understanding, and I mean, just as a mentor and a residency director, to be present the way that he was every week. He'd come probably from skiing, and then he would, on Monday nights, we would go over all these articles, and he'd read them Sunday night, and we'd talk about them. It was great.
Yeah, he's been involved in that PSL program since before I got to Denver in the early 90s. So what a phenomenal teacher and mentor.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'd love to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about your passion project. We've had Dr. Glenn Weinraub on, who touched a little bit on the Bones Pro Bono. So what I would love to hear, Brian, is how did you get involved with this, and some of your experiences with this project?
Absolutely. So I've known Glenn for a long time. It's great, especially now we're in the Bay Area. We'll get dinner together, and we really talked about this along with one of my partners here at Kaiser, Dr. Will Slicker. He's a hand surgeon here. He's amazing. But he wanted to essentially legitimize our operation and our ability to create a nonprofit to get donations for these countries and areas in need. So our goal, it's a passion project of ours because we've gone to Vietnam for about 15 years now as a total, or even more so. And we've been able to perform about 20 surgeries a week. When we're there, we see 80 to 100 patients. We're triaging, we're doing all this stuff. But we want to try and be able to deliver both education, and we want to deliver equipment to be able to help these patients, because unfortunately they have a very rudimentary version of some plates and screws and those types of things, and we never know what we're going to get. And so we always like to be prepared because of the complexity of surgery that we're doing while we're there. We're doing TTC fusions with just a small plates and screws, and the screws have to be cut to size with a bolt cutter on the back table. I'm like, okay, I need a screw this big, and then they'll go and do that, and essentially that's what our tech will do. And so we're trying to find ways to also teach at the same time. It's amazing to see it now, where I actually get messages from one of the surgeons there. He'll message me on Instagram and say, hey, this is what I did. I did this sinus tarsi approach calc fracture. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like, you were able to do this with the tools and equipment based on the techniques, the newer technology we have, and evidence-based medicine we have to be able to elicit better results. And it's awesome. We lecture, and we've actually expanded our program to both Kenya now, and we're going to try and go to South America as well, or potentially Mexico. So those are on the upcoming next couple of years with regards to our plan.
That's fantastic. And so you had said this had started previously. Dr. Weinrob had been going to Vietnam for many years. How was it that you got involved? Was it you had known he had done this? Did you go with him? Did you hear about it? Tell us that origin story.
Well, it's kind of interesting, and weird timing, if you will. Essentially, Glenn has been going for a long time, and he knew that he was retiring. He was like, hey, and I was looking for a job at the same time, and it was actually at the national meeting, the ASC, that he said, hey, you know what, I'm retiring. You're graduating from fellowship. You should take over my job. And I was like, okay, like, that sounds pretty awesome. Like, let's check this out. I was having difficulty trying to find a job at the time, and essentially he also was like, I'm not really going to be working, but I'd still like to go to Vietnam, but I want you to continue to herald the program while you're there. You're working with the residents, and we bring residents as well, which is great. So we're able to deliver teaching both to our residents and the physicians in Vietnam, which is superb. So that's essentially what ended up happening. Glenn obviously was sick for a year and was not able to go, and so I went alone. So I was the only person. There was no residents. There was no nothing. I'm doing surgeries, and I have no assist. I don't speak Vietnamese. It was not the easiest of processes, but at the same time, the team there was great. The support was great. The head of the hospital was super appreciative and helpful that we were able to continue the program, and we wanted to continue that legacy throughout. So that's essentially where my role started.
Yeah. And how did Bones Pro Bono kind of develop? Because again, he had been going to Vietnam, but it wasn't through this specific organization.
Right.
So tell us about how that, and you'd mentioned it was to kind of help get funding and donations and that sort of thing. But was this like, did you and he talk about, like, what did that look like?
Yeah, for sure. And it was both us two as well as Will Slicker to really discuss this, as he's had a lot of experience with the American Hand Society and those types of things, getting grants and other potential opportunities financially to help with regards to our mission. We were able to really work in concert with him to understand that we had greater goals, not just to be able to help in Vietnam, but how can we globalize this a little bit more? We have a lot of aspirations, and it's difficult being a full-time doc and trying to do these nonprofit things at the same time. Obviously, programs like Mark Myerson's Steps to Walk and those types of things have really taken off, and they've created a really nice avenue for physicians to go. That's our goal. Our goal is to be able to do that as well. But I also have some globalization things that I would like to try and implement with our nonprofit, almost creating a marketplace, if you will, to create need. So let's say a hospital in Vietnam or Kenya is requesting specialty surgeons to come in, or they can request equipment. How can we do that to create almost a marketplace, to create both demand and supply for certain things? That's essentially our goal, is to be able to do that going forward, which would be pretty amazing, so that we could help people that need surgery that can't necessarily have access to it.
Yeah. Oh, so many things. Jeff, I'm gonna throw the ball back at you. Otherwise, I'll keep talking.
No, it's okay. So Brian, this is a little history. I'm always interested in names, right? Like people brainstorming names and things. What's the story? And this probably comes down over the years. Bones Pro Bono. It's brilliant, right? Who came up with that name? How'd that play out? As you understand it.
No, it was actually Glenn. So I'll give all the credit to Glenn. We were trying to throw around a couple of names, and nothing was really sticking. And I guess he's like, oh, like talking about surgery. We're doing a medical mission. We're doing this stuff for free. And he's like, oh, it's pro bono work. And he's like, oh shoot. So and so it's all orthopedic. So now we actually bring a shoulder surgeon as well, and we brought a sports medicine surgeon last year also.
Oh,
so
awesome.
It's not just lower extremity, it's upper extremity, it's sports medicine. So we're really trying to expand our profile to be able to help patients. But obviously, our niche is lower extremity. We want to continue to create more opportunities for people, both in our profession and others, to be able to help do philanthropic work.
So question for you: do you get a lot of support from Kaiser?
We do, with not financially, but they do. They're very appreciative. We do market and show them, hey, this is us. This is our brand. This is what we're trying to do. But it does have to be a separate entity from Kaiser itself. So it is completely independent of Kaiser. We are funding and all those things. There's no dollars that are spent on us. It is directly to patients. There is no money. We do not earn anything. We do not spend it unless it's directly due to mission care or potential fundraising ventures.
Oh, that's fabulous. And what a good example for everybody going forward.
That we're trying to be above reproach, essentially, and saying, hey, this is going all to people. We want to make sure that we do this because that's the true nature of philanthropy. We want to provide and not take.
Absolutely brilliant. Joni Moore, I was going to shift gears and head a different direction unless you want to have any other questions.
No, not yet. I still have more questions. Well, and also more because I really want to talk about this, Jeff, because this idea of medical mission work, I think, is also a little different than what this Bones Pro Bono actually, the long goal of what you guys are trying to do. Because it's not just like, oh, hey, let's go to a place and do a bunch of surgery and leave, which some pros and cons to that. But there's been some really good evidence recently talking about kind of the dangers of quote unquote medical mission work. And again, I want to make a distinction here, because certainly the talks that I've had with you, Brian, and certainly the ones with Glenn, there's a much bigger picture behind the work, the groundwork that you have both been laying here. And certainly Dr. Slick, which I would not want to discredit him at all. But since we're a podiatry podcast, I'm going to keep it kind of focused in that regard right now.
Worries.
So I'd love to have you talk a little bit too, for the audience that maybe isn't as familiar with what the kind of work that's being done. I've had my own medical global health trips, and it's startling the kind of work that isn't being done. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the types of surgeries that you're doing and the impact that it has on the people in their genuine day-to-day life?
Absolutely. So I think you have to first understand that we'll talk about Vietnam specifically, because that's my experience. And, we'll triage about 80 patients or so on Monday just for lower extremity, foot and ankle, and figure out who needs surgery or who deserves surgery or who, we can take care of, because we don't have the equipment necessarily to be able to do a lot of these things. And so we have to understand our inventory. That's part of it, and trying to communicate all that. But we'll go and we'll do anything from as simple as pediatric, potential like deformity, where we're talking clubfoot release, or even just clubfoot casting, perhaps. Vertical talus, we'll do anything as far as trauma, neglected trauma, such as dirt or motorbike injuries, because that is just there are motos all over the place. So there's a lot of calcaneal fractures, a lot of distal tibial fractures. You're going to see a lot of complex open injuries. There are also a lot of farm injuries associated with these things. So A lot of it can be trauma, but there is a lot of congenital and syndromic disease that we see as well. But that's not just it. We'll see our standard flexible flat foot. We'll see a lot of the things that are, quote, bread and butter for us, but there they don't have the specialists to necessarily perform the surgeries. And obviously, it's interesting too, because is it a communist country? Yes, but there are very much capitalistic ideas that go on a day-to-day basis where people are trying to make money. And so our goal is to create a safe place for people to have surgery that don't have to pay for it or can be realistic about those things. I think that's a big thing too, is that they can go to some other physicians, and perhaps they have to pay a lot of money to be able to do those things. And it was interesting at the discussion that I had last year with patients is that it costs about 3 years' salary to have surgery, basically. And so just that perspective alone was like, oh my gosh, like this is absolutely unbelievable to see that, and to be able to help patients is pretty amazing. So we see, I mean, I'll do cavus reconstructions where we're doing PT tendon transfers, and I remember I was routing the PT through the cuneiform, and I asked for a suture button, and they're like, no button. I'm like, what do you mean no button? They're like, yeah, no, we ran out. I'm like, oh, who are you going to tell me beforehand? So this is a supply thing, right? That we're talking about. Obviously, since then, I brought buttons, but I had to use like a rubber stopper from a syringe. So you have to think on your feet as well. And our goal with regards to our medical mission work is to bring surgeons that have a specific background with regards to major reconstruction. That's typically what we like to do. We also have a vetting process through which we go through, and we don't just send people. We do a proctorship, et cetera, that goes through that process, and then we will let them go on their own or be kind of an ambassador for us, if you will. So it's not just like, hey, anyone can sign up, even though I don't do PT tendon transfers or I don't do flat feet. Or, they are specialists in this field and work with a wide breadth of knowledge and experience.
Yeah, I love that, because again, this idea of some consistency and at the end of the day, do no harm. And so again, it's not a vetting process is not meant to be a restrictive thing. It's really to do your due diligence. And I appreciate that, again, certainly talking to both of you about your long-term goals and what this could potentially look like, that those kinds of safeguards, I think, are really, it just shows the amount of care that you've put into this. We will include a link in the show notes for anyone that is interested in looking into Bones Pro Bono. And I'm assuming all of this is on your website. If someone wanted to apply or get involved or donate, that's all available.
It's all on there. Yep. And then there's Venmo, there's Zelle, there's all these things that people can donate. It's also tax deductible. So any information is shot to our email, and we are more than happy to answer any and all questions.
That's awesome. Jeff, any final thoughts before we transition to a different topic?
No, I commend you and Glenn on your efforts, because I know that to spend a week somewhere, it probably takes about 6 weeks to plan it of pure time. So, and time's our precious commodity. So kudos to you and Glenn.
Thank you very much.
So before we transition and shift gears a little bit, maybe we can hear a quick word from our sponsors.
Did you know APMA provides help with public health initiatives such as fall prevention, opioid abuse prevention, and addressing health disparities?
Did you know the APMA provides over $400,000 in scholarships annually to students pursuing podiatric medicine, helping the next generation of foot and ankle specialists?
If you're serious about this profession, if you want to grow, to lead, to make a lasting impact, join APMA today.
All right, well, we're back. Okay, so Brian, I'd love to transition into some of the work that you have done with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, as well as the education that you do on a day-to-day basis. But before I take this whole interview, Jeff, I want to throw the ball back to you because you had said you wanted to transition. So those are some areas that if we don't get to, we'll have to bring you back for another podcast. But first, I'll let Jeff go.
Well, I just had a question because I was going through your CV and Brian, it's phenomenal, but I was noticing the dates. So in 2013, before you ever went to school at Temple, you had an opportunity to work at MedStar in the wound center.
Yep.
Tell us about that. And
Oh yeah,
I know your family's in podiatry and everything, but
Yeah.
that must have been pretty cool before you even started.
And no offense to my dad, but there's a lot of reasons as to why I went into podiatry because of that job. I just finished playing college baseball, didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do. And so I had an opportunity to work with John Steinberg and Paul Kim and Chris Attinger, Karen Evans, and all these great guys and gals at MedStar in their wound center. I really was able to, I kind of worked, I was like filing papers, I was scanning, I was doing all this stuff, but I also worked with the research department and was doing some Charcot research with them to basically do some data mining, et cetera. And actually met my first year roommate through that process. We both went to Temple. And so we talked a lot about that as well. Shout out to Xenia. And when I had that experience, I saw how the plastic surgeons, the vascular surgeons, and the podiatrists were. Man, I'll tell you what, it was very eye-opening to me to see the opportunities that our podiatric foot and ankle surgery colleagues, they really have, but also they have that balance of that work and life, and they really are able to do a lot in addition to doing surgery. I mean, I always wanted to work with my hands and all those things, so it was a really amazing venture. And Dr. Steinberg was fantastic, and we still, occasionally we'll talk. And it was just an amazing experience to just be there, be a fly on the wall, and take all those things in, shadow in the OR and in the clinic. So it was really an amazing opportunity.
When I read this, I thought that must have been a launching pad for Brian.
Very much so, but it was great too, because I could, I had such a great, and I still do have such a great mentorship group. And I urge everyone that's going through this to create and cultivate that as well, because that's the culture that you want to continue to have for our profession.
Oh, man, well said. Joe and I have talked about mentoring with so many of our guests, and it's no surprise that leaders in our profession have been taught by tremendous leaders in our profession, right? I mean, that mentorship goes generation to generation. A couple of your mentors. I mean, Joe, if it's okay.
Yeah, please.
Brian, from your perspective, some of the mentors that have made a tremendous impact on you.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, first and foremost, got to talk about my dad. He's always been someone that's been supportive of whatever I've done. He was supportive of me not even going into podiatry. And so, I think that's an important aspect of mentorship as well, is to understand, like, it's not controlling. It's allowing them to create their own decisions. And so, I can't thank him enough for that. Glenn Weinraub obviously is another one, especially in the Bay Area. Jack Schuberth, we get dinner once a month, which is great. And I just listen to him and his stories and all those things, which is amazing. Obviously, we talked about Paul Stone, Brett Sachs, Alan Ng, Keith Jacobson, all these guys, Ryan Scott. It's truly. I have to pinch myself sometimes. I'm just very, very lucky.
It's incredible. You cultivated those, and what an incredible path that they've set for you. And now you get to give back a little bit as you are.
For sure.
All right, Joe, that was my question, my main one.
Actually, I'd love to just kind of sit here. Maybe we'll just do a part 2 where we can talk about the other fun things that Brian's part of, like, another time. Because I didn't want to start with the stuff about your dad, primarily because being a legacy son, I didn't want, like, you've created your own moment and your own experiences. And I didn't want to be like, so tell us what it was like growing up with Dr. Derner as your dad. But since we kind of landed here, I would love to know, but prior to your experience where you got to wasn't shadowing, you actually had work experience there with MedStar. Prior to that, what was it like growing up in a household with a podiatric legend? I know you didn't know that, but like, what was it like?
I mean, you don't really understand that growing up, but it's funny though, because I did shadow and I went into the OR with him and all those things even through college. So I'd come back and sometimes I would go and be like, hey, I got some cases. You want to come and check them out? And I'm like, sure. And later on, I definitely understood it. But, if you could imagine, or maybe not even have to imagine, he's a pretty loud guy. And so he would always be the loudest and biggest cheerleader for me, especially from the stands, playing baseball, growing up and doing all those things, but also very cognizant and understanding of being home with us. And, I now seeing in my professional career, he took the time to be my coach, to do all of these things. And, I it's so much perspective for me to kind of see that and be so appreciative of all those things. I still talk to him all the time. We talk cases all the time. And it is just so fun because he's like, oh, yep, I made that mistake. Oh, yep, I made that mistake too. And it just to kind of have that full circle moment for him as well as for me to kind of see this now. It was just, it's so fun. And it's just amazing to have that opportunity to do that. Was it intimidating at times? Yeah. But, what parent, it can be a little intimidating, especially being in this profession and all those things. But like I said, I couldn't be more appreciative of how he taught me growing up and was there for me.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful. And, your dad has been mentioned by so many people that have been mentors just for myself. And I've met him once, but he would have no reason to have remembered me from a random bump in at like an FACFAS thing. I was with Graham and maybe Ford and Glenn.
Mhm.
And so it was like that. They're like, oh, hey, it's Derner. So that was like the only experience I've ever had personally with your dad. But hearing from the people that have had such an impact on my own life, that he was a mentor to them, again, that carries something for me. That means something when you hear how much from multiple people, like it just tells you about the character of someone. So it's fun then to see his actual son be able to comment on that too, and not just from a professional standpoint, but as a personal thing. Because one of the things Jeff and I talk about all the time on this podcast is there is no such thing as work-life balance. I'm gonna say it again. I'm gonna say it all my whole life. But there is this idea of work-life alignment or harmony or whatever word you want to use that's not balanced. It's not a balanced system. But if we can make the space for the things that matter the most to us, both personally and professionally, that is how you build satisfaction in your life. And so it's beautiful to hear you have had an experience where that was modeled for you. And it sounds like from an objective third party, that's what you're doing in your own life, Brian. And I just think that that's just absolutely exciting. So kudos to you.
I appreciate that very much. And it's funny, I hear it now. A lot of patients are like, we can just tell you love what you do.
Yeah.
And, I think that I have to give credit to my dad to be able to inspire, me maybe growing up just to be passionate about things, not necessarily the same things, but just showing that intent. And that really has come and helped me through my professional career.
Brian, I think that's so cool that he coached you in sports and took time out of his busy practice, surgery schedule, being a leader in our profession to, during those important times of your life when you were younger. I think that speaks volumes also.
Actually, I have to say, this is just one of those amazing 7 degrees of separation from someone. There was a LinkedIn post by a rep for a company talking about how impactful your dad was on his life and his career. And again, such a random thing. And then the reason it ended up in my feed, Doug Piccaccio commented on it. And maybe somebody else that is like, it's so funny, right? Like how you start to see these stories that come out. And when we think about a legacy and what we want to leave behind, I just think that that's really beautiful. If there's not anything else, Jeff, would you want to switch into some rapid fire? These are fun rapid fire, Brian. All right.
Okay.
Because I think it'd be fun to kind of close out with. All right. So I'll kick it off. So
Okay.
Brian, if you could go to dinner with anybody from any time in history, and you could pick a couple if you want, but if it's too hard, you could pick just one.
Okay.
Who would it be and why? It doesn't have to be a famous person. It could be anybody.
Oh, I'd probably say Leonardo da Vinci. Honestly, I think that it's just what a person ahead of their time to figure out and talk to them about like what they were going through. Obviously, I don't speak Italian, but it's one of
Those
those
are
things.
details we don't worry about.
Minor details. I think that would just be so enlightening to kind of see the process of someone that is way ahead of their time and understand or try and understand what they're going through and how they have been able to create this legacy of invention. And I just think that'd be super interesting.
Yeah. And the early artists were the first anatomists of like, they would literally dig people up and do dissections. And interesting, the difference between Michelangelo and Leonardo, this was like a tortured thing for Michelangelo. It really like conflicted him. And it didn't have the same impact on Leonardo, probably just from the curiosity and inquisitive part, but just fun art history moment.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
You got a little Renaissance man in you, Brian. For sure. So if you weren't a podiatrist, what would you be doing?
I've had this, maybe when I retire, I love to cook, and I always, I grew up with family that's from North Jersey. Diners are very much a thing. So I was thinking about actually being like creating my own diner, doing that and having like a Jersey style diner somewhere else. So that would be something that I would think about doing.
Oh, I love this so much. I hope someone on the internet with creativity skills creates a meme of Dr. Derner, Bones Pro Bono, and then flip side is the diner guy. Like, I love that.
Flipping like eggs and stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Greasy eggs with good hash browns.
Love it.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. We're going to go out happy hour at a FACFAS. What's your drink of choice?
Ooh, I think for me, I've actually been more aligned with mezcal recently, so probably like a mezcal margarita, something like that. I like the smoky flavor. I like bourbon and mezcal, so for me, probably one of the two. But I think that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
All right. If you come back to Phoenix, I know where I'm taking you.
Okay. Deal.
Okay, Jeff, your turn.
So Brian, I went to school in San Francisco at the California College, and the food was so outstanding. What are your two favorite restaurants in San Francisco?
Okay. I would say if you're gonna go and get something that's higher class, like Michelin star type restaurant, I love Rich Table. I think it's fantastic. They don't have a star, but they used to, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And then if we're talking just kind of hole in the wall or just kind of staple, I would say like Tony's Pizza or Golden Boy Pizza, something like that is just it's great pizza, it's solid. And then obviously I wouldn't be, I guess, a San Franciscan now if I didn't talk about how amazing the pastries are. So I'd probably say Juniper or Arsico.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you're making me so envious again that now you live in the Bay Area and I don't. So we're gonna switch. We're gonna go childhood things. Was there something in your childhood that you used to do that you loved that you don't do anymore?
Yes, I would say I don't build Legos anymore. I used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously they've come out with some crazy stuff now that's just unbelievable. But no, I haven't done anything like that. But I would highly recommend that students like do these types of things, these builds, even just building something just to kind of get your hand skills. That's an aside altogether, but I think it's super important, especially as we are a surgical profession. Getting your hand skills up, especially when you're younger, is super important.
And the 3D spatial stuff with the Legos, I am appreciating this now as a parent, like that attention to detail, looking at these like step-by-step pictures of how to put these things together. That is such good experience. I fully agree. Legos are great.
So Brian, when you need to recharge your battery, I know you're into cooking, but what other hobbies or activities do you do to relax and kind of, get ready for Monday?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I golf a decent amount, so definitely getting on the course, and it's nice. I can golf pretty much all year round here, which is really amazing. I would say that going wine tasting is also great. Definitely a passion. And then my wife and I we like to hike as well, so we'll go out and be able to enjoy. Last year we did a couple of national parks around here, and so they're all drives away. You have Yosemite, you have Kings Canyon, you have Redwood National Forest, so there's a lot around here, which is great.
I mean, even just in the Bay Area, all the trails are unreal.
Oh yeah.
Mount Tam and
Yep,
across the
exactly.
East Bay. Fabulous.
All right,
Joe.
a piece of advice that you got that you thought was really impactful and useful, and a piece of advice that you think is terrible.
Okay, I have to shout out Andy Meyer on this one. So as an attending at Temple, he would always say, "Use more than you are being used." And I think that rings true for so many things, because you know at some point someone is going to try and take advantage or try and potentially get an upper hand on things. But if you find a way to take advantage back and really kind of glean information or something else, I think it really helps a lot. And then, man, a piece of, I don't know.
Yeah, like a bad piece of advice.
Always bet on black. That's a bad one. Yeah, it's a bad one.
Oh, that's funny. All right, I'll take that.
Funny story, Brian. I was texting Andy Meyer today because I was telling him about how great my Milwaukee Brewers are. They got the best record in baseball.
They're so good.
He's a huge Phillies fan. So Andy and I were literally texting today about that. All right. One more question. So what kind of music do you like to play in the OR?
It's a good question. I'll switch it up. If I know that I am going to have like a pretty complex case, I actually will go with classic rock. So I'll start with some AC/DC and then work from there. But I'll switch it up between EDM and pop as well, depending. Sometimes if I, if it's the resident's last month on rotation as a chief, they get to pick the music. But usually they let me pick. They say they have decent music taste, so I'll take that as a compliment.
That's great. That's fabulous. Joe, any other thoughts, last words?
No, thank you so much, Brian, for all the work that you've done and that you continue to do, and for taking the time to share it with our audience. I'm so excited about Bones Pro Bono and the potential future that it has to impact global health in such positive ways. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time to put all that effort into it, because there's so much effort behind the scenes that people don't see. And that's a huge take. And I think that it's wonderful. So thank you.
No, and thank you so much. People can visit bonesprobono.org. You can always email us as well. Our email's on the website. Our hope is to expand and hopefully have surgeons that are listening aspire and want to try and join our venture. And we're excited to see where it goes. And I really appreciate you, Joe, and Jeff, for having me on. This has been awesome. It's been a lot of fun.
Well,
we'll have to do a part 2, because we didn't even get to his CV. We didn't even cover anything.
Like after your next trip to Vietnam, get you on right when you get back.
Oh, that would be awesome, actually, Jeff. That would be, maybe we could get you and Glenn together.
Oh my gosh,
that'd be
great.
Really fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun.
So Brian, one of the fascinating things about podcasting is you can podcast for an hour and it feels like 15 minutes. It's the strangest thing how that works. But we thank you so much for taking time and joining us and all you do for the profession and giving back. It's truly a model for our young doctors to follow. So thank you.
No, thank you guys again. This has been amazing.
All righty. Well, all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please give us a 5-star rating or even leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, by all means, become a subscriber. Joe and I will continue to bring leaders in the podiatric profession to the podcast, and we sure hope you're enjoying it. So until next week, everybody, cheers. And Brian, we're sending you one of these cups too.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
All right. Sounds good.
You put some Blue Bottle coffee in it.
Or in mezcal.
Or mezcal.
Right. Not in the office. Not in the office.
Okay. Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.